You know that moment when someone pulls away from you, not because they don't care, but because their ego won't let them stay close. At first, it looks like strength. They create distance. They act like they don't need you. They convince themselves it's about independence, self-protection, even dignity. But here's the paradox: the ego's power fades when the silence gets heavy, when the nights get long. That's when the avoidant person realizes the very thing they pushed away was the connection they crave the most. Ego makes us win in the moment, but lose in the long game. And let's be honest, we've all been on both sides of this. Sometimes we're the ones pulling back. Other times, we're the ones feeling abandoned. Either way, the lesson is the same. The ego's job is to protect us, but often it only protects us from love, not from pain. Connection demands humility. It demands the courage to say, "I miss you," before pride convinces us to stay silent. The truth is, vulnerability feels risky, but avoidance is even riskier. It costs us relationships, intimacy, and the chance to grow with someone. So the real strength, it's not found in who can withhold the longest. It's found in who can be brave enough to step past their ego, lean into the discomfort, and choose closeness over avoidance. Ego often disguises itself as strength. When someone feels threatened, vulnerable, or exposed, their instinct may be to retreat behind walls built by pride. On the surface, this looks like control. It feels like taking back power. They might withhold affection, go silent, or distance themselves, telling themselves it's about self-respect or independence. In reality, what's happening is that the ego is stepping in as a shield, creating the illusion of safety while slowly cutting off the very connection that could bring comfort, intimacy, and growth. The reason ego is so effective at pushing people away is it offers a quick solution to discomfort. Instead of saying, "I feel hurt," or "I need reassurance," which requires vulnerability, ego says, "I don't care," or "I don't need you." That statement feels less risky in the moment because it avoids the possibility of rejection, yet it's a false safety net. By projecting strength and distance, the person avoids the rawness of being seen, but they also shut the door on being understood. The shield that blocks out pain also blocks out love. When ego takes control, communication breaks down. Imagine two people in conflict. One feels hurt, but too proud to admit it, so they withdraw. The other senses the distance and feels rejected. What starts as a simple need for reassurance turns into a spiral of avoidance and misunderstanding. Ego tells the hurt person, "Stay strong. Don't show them they got to you." But strength in that moment is really just silence. Silence that leaves the other person questioning their worth, while the avoidant person convinces themselves they're doing the right thing by holding back. At its core, ego thrives on fear. Fear of rejection, fear of appearing weak, fear of losing control. That's why it feels so protective in the short term. But the irony is that the very act of pushing away increases the risk of losing the relationship altogether. The shield may block momentary discomfort, but over time it breeds distance, resentment, and disconnection. What began as self-preservation eventually becomes self-sabotage. The tragedy of ego-driven avoidance is that it's rooted in a longing for love and validation. The person who withdraws usually wants closeness as much as the one who reaches for it, but their fear tells them it's safer to pretend not to care. That's why ego is deceptive. It convinces us that distance equals strength, when in fact it's often just fear dressed as pride. What feels like control in the moment is actually a slow erosion of the very connection that could heal the fear in the first place. Avoidance has a way of feeling powerful in the beginning. When someone pulls away, they often experience a rush of control. It feels like they've reclaimed their independence, proven their strength, and shown that they don't need anyone. There's an initial sense of relief, no longer having to face the discomfort of conflict, vulnerability, or rejection. In that moment, the ego convinces them that stepping back is the smartest move, that protecting their pride is more important than exposing their feelings. It feels like a victory, but that victory is fleeting. Over time, the silence that once felt freeing begins to feel heavy. The distance that was supposed to bring peace becomes a source of restlessness. The person who avoided closeness to protect themselves from hurt starts to feel the ache of disconnection. Nights feel longer, thoughts linger on what was lost, and the pride that once felt like strength transforms into regret. The very act of avoidance, which initially promised freedom, slowly turns into a haunting reminder of what could have been. The haunting doesn't come all at once. It creeps in gradually, in quiet moments. a song that reminds them of a memory, a place that carries the imprint of shared laughter, or simply the emptiness of not having someone to lean on. These small reminders expose the truth the avoidance didn't erase the need for connection. It only delayed it. And when that realization hits, the pride that felt protective begins to feel like a cage. The power of avoidance evaporates, leaving behind a sense of longing and missed opportunity. What makes this cycle so difficult is the illusion it creates. At first, the avoidant believes they're in control, that they've gained the upper hand by retreating. But real control isn't found in distancing, it's found in being able to face emotions directly. Avoidance replaces courage with temporary comfort, but it cannot erase the underlying desire for closeness. In fact, it often amplifies it. The more someone denies their need for connection, the stronger that need becomes, surfacing later as regret, anxiety, or an unshakable sense of emptiness. When the haunting sets in, it's not just about missing a person. It's about realizing that ego was driving the choices. It's the recognition that silence was not strength, but fear. That distance was not independence, but isolation. The regret that follows avoidance is often heavier than the discomfort that vulnerability might have caused. Because avoidance not only blocks intimacy in the moment, it leaves behind the lasting pain of knowing closeness was possible, but pride refused to let it happen. It's easy to look at avoidance and think it only belongs to a certain type of person, the one who runs when things get hard, the one who hides behind silence or pride. But the truth is, everyone has been on both sides of this dynamic at some point. We've all been the one who pulled away, even if it was just for a moment, and we've all been the one left wondering why someone else created distance. That's what makes this pattern so universal. It's not just about attachment styles or personality types. It's about being human. There are moments in life where the fear of being hurt makes us put up walls, even with people we care about deeply. Maybe we didn't want to admit we were wrong, or maybe we didn't want to expose just how much we cared, so we chose distance. We acted like it didn't matter, when in reality it mattered more than anything. That's when we become the avoidant one, protecting ourselves from vulnerability by pretending indifference. On the other hand, there are moments when we've been on the receiving end, feeling the sting of someone else's silence, wondering what we did wrong, replaying conversations in our head. That experience leaves us feeling powerless, hurt, and often confused. Recognizing that we've lived both sides is the first step toward breaking the cycle. When we realize that avoidance is not about a lack of love but about fear, we can see the humanity in it. We understand that when someone pulls away, it's not always rejection, it's often self-protection. And when we're the ones doing the pulling away, awareness helps us question whether our ego is making choices that don't actually serve us. This awareness builds empathy. If you've ever been left in the dark by someone's distance, you know how painful it feels. Remembering that pain when you're tempted to pull away can change how you respond. Instead of choosing silence, you might choose honesty. Instead of letting ego dictate your actions, you might allow vulnerability to guide you. And when you're on the other side, dealing with someone else's avoidance, empathy reminds you that their distance may not be about your worth, but about their fear. Being on both sides also shows us the cost of avoidance more clearly. We see how it leaves both people unfulfilled, one longing for closeness, the other longing for safety, but still ending up lonely. It's in recognizing that duality within ourselves that we gain the power to respond differently, to pause before letting pride push us away, or to hold compassion when someone else struggles to stay close. Vulnerability often gets mistaken for weakness because it exposes the parts of ourselves we usually try to hide, the doubts, the insecurities, the fears of not being enough. Society teaches us to wear masks, to project confidence, independence, and strength at all times. So when the idea of opening up comes into play, admitting we miss someone, confessing we're hurt, or expressing how deeply we care, it feels risky. The ego screams that showing these emotions will make us look fragile, that it will hand power over to the other person. Yet, the very thing we label as weakness is actually what creates closeness and authenticity in relationships. When someone is vulnerable, they allow themselves to be truly seen. They drop the performance and offer something real. That kind of honesty is magnetic because it cuts through the superficial layers most people hide behind. Think about the moments when you felt closest to another person. It wasn't when they pretended to have everything figured out, but when they let you into their struggle, their joy, their fear. Vulnerability is the bridge that turns connection into intimacy. Without it, relationships remain shallow, no matter how strong they appear on the outside. The paradox of vulnerability is that while it feels like exposure, it's actually the foundation of strength. It takes courage to risk rejection by admitting how much you care. It takes inner confidence to say, I need you, knowing the other person might not respond the way you hope. Avoidance feels safer because it shields us from the possibility of pain, but it also denies us the possibility of love. Vulnerability, on the other hand, opens the door to both. But without taking that risk, true closeness can never exist. What many people don't realize is that vulnerability doesn't just create connection with others, it creates freedom within ourselves. When we let go of the need to always appear strong, we stop carrying the heavy armor of ego. That armor may feel protective, but it's exhausting to maintain. Vulnerability lightens that load by allowing us to live more authentically. It says, this is me, imperfect, human, but real. And the people who are meant for us respond to that truth, not to the performance. In every meaningful relationship, there comes a choice between pride and vulnerability. Pride protects the ego, but vulnerability protects the connection. The very moments we fear exposing ourselves are often the moments that draw someone closer because they can finally feel us, not just see us. Far from being weakness, vulnerability is the bravest act we can offer in love. Real strength often gets confused with who can hold out the longest, who can remain silent, or who can act like they don't care. People mistake stubbornness for resilience when in truth, it's usually just ego trying to mask fear. Strength isn't about building walls so high that no one can reach you. It's about having the courage to let them down and allow someone in. Humility is what makes that possible because humility softens the edges of pride and makes space for connection. When someone chooses humility, they're not saying they're weak or less valuable. They're saying they value the relationship more than being right. They're willing to put aside the ego's need to win so they can protect the bond that truly matters. That's where real strength lies, in the ability to say, I miss you, I'm sorry, or I care, even when it feels uncomfortable. Those small phrases carry more power than silence ever could because they rebuild bridges where ego only burns them down. Humility also requires incredible self-awareness. It means recognizing when pride is driving our actions, when we're pulling away out of fear rather than genuine self-respect. That kind of awareness takes maturity because it's far easier to default to avoidance than it is to confront our own ego. Choosing humility doesn't happen by accident. It's an intentional act that says, I won't let my pride cost me something meaningful. And that choice is one of the strongest demonstrations of character anyone can make. What makes humility powerful is that it transforms relationships. When one person has the strength to step past ego, it often disarms the other. Instead of continuing a cycle of silence and distance, humility invites openness and creates safety. It's like lowering a weapon in a standoff. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts from defensiveness to vulnerability. That shift doesn't just repair a connection, it deepens it. The relationship becomes stronger because it's built on truth rather than posturing. People sometimes think avoiding vulnerability protects their dignity, but the opposite is true. Dignity is preserved in honesty, not in ego. There's nothing dignified about letting love slip away just to prove a point. True strength lies in admitting we're human, that we feel, that we care, and that we're willing to risk discomfort to keep closeness alive. In the end, it's not the one who withholds the longest who wins. It's the one brave enough to step forward, choose humility, and prioritize connection over pride. At the heart of it all, ego promises protection, but leaves us with distance, while vulnerability feels risky, but creates the very closeness we all crave. Avoidance may seem powerful in the moment, but over time it becomes a shadow that haunts us with regret. We've all played both roles, sometimes the one who withdraws, sometimes the one left waiting. But awareness gives us the power to choose differently. The real test of strength isn't how long we can go without showing emotion. It's whether we can put pride aside long enough to say the words that matter. I'm sorry, I care, I miss you. Those simple phrases carry more courage than silence ever will. In the end, it's not about who wins the battle of ego. It's about who is brave enough to protect the connection. So my invitation to you is this: the next time you feel ego telling you to pull away, pause. Ask yourself whether pride is protecting you or whether it's quietly robbing you of love, intimacy, and growth. Because the truth is, the strongest thing you can ever do is not to avoid, but to lean in. Thank you for giving me your time and your attention today. I hope these words don't just stay as ideas, but turn into choices. Choices that allow you to move past ego, embrace humility, and create connections that last. Goodbye, and thank you once again. It's been a privilege to share this with you.